You have a pure heart, Malik.
He refused the money.
Please save her.
Every expense is covered.
The morning sun barely reached the cracked sidewalks of Southwood, a forgotten neighborhood on the edge of Atlanta. Old apartment buildings leaned against each other like exhausted giants. Paint peeled from every wall, and broken streetlights stood as reminders that few people cared about the families living there. Among those forgotten people was a 12-year-old African-American boy named Malik Carter. Every morning before school, Malik pushed an old shopping cart through the neighborhood collecting aluminum cans and plastic bottles. The money wasn't much, but every dollar helped pay for bread, milk, and medicine for his grandmother, Mama Ruth, who had raised him since he was a baby. Malik had never met his father. His mother had passed away when he was only 3 years old. People often whispered that he was born unlucky. Malik never answered them. Instead, he smiled. His grandmother always told him, "Kindness is the one thing poverty can't steal." Those words became the foundation of his life. Even when he barely had enough food for himself, Malik shared sandwiches with stray dogs and elderly neighbors. Many people laughed at him. "You can't save everybody," they said. Malik simply smiled and continued walking. One rainy Tuesday, Malik finished school later than usual. Dark clouds covered the sky. Heavy rain flooded the streets. Most people rushed home. Malik noticed an elderly homeless veteran sitting beneath a bus stop with no umbrella. The old man's hands shook from the cold. Without hesitation, Malik removed his only dry hoodie. He gently placed it over the man's shoulders. The veteran looked shocked. "But son, you'll get soaked." Malik smiled. "I'll dry off later." The old man stared as the boy disappeared into the rain. He whispered, "God, please bless that child." When Malik finally reached home, he was completely drenched. Mama Ruth immediately wrapped him in an old blanket. "You gave your jacket away again, didn't you?" Malik looked down. "He needed it more than I did." Mama Ruth sighed. Sometimes she worried that her grandson was too kind for such a cruel world. Yet deep inside, she felt proud. She kissed his forehead. "Your mama would be smiling today." Malik smiled through tired eyes. Those words meant everything. The next morning, Malik walked to school wearing an oversized sweater with several holes. As he entered class, several boys laughed. "Look who's wearing grandma's blanket." Another student pointed. "Maybe we should start a charity for him." The classroom exploded with laughter. Malik quietly sat at his desk. He never answered insults. His teacher, Mrs. Evelyn Brooks, noticed everything. After class she stopped him. "You okay?" Malik nodded. "Yes, ma'am." She knew he wasn't. Before he left, she secretly placed 2 sandwiches inside his backpack. Malik discovered them during lunch. He smiled gratefully. But instead of eating both sandwiches, he walked outside. Near the school fence sat a little girl crying quietly. She hadn't eaten since yesterday. Without thinking twice, Malik handed her one sandwich. She smiled with tears in her eyes. "Thank you." He simply replied. "My grandma says food tastes better when it's shared." Days passed. Life remained difficult. Bills piled higher. Mama Ruth's health became worse. One evening she quietly counted the money inside an old cookie jar. Only $11 remained. Her medicine alone cost nearly $60. She tried hiding her tears. But Malik saw them. That night he couldn't sleep. He promised himself he would find more work after school, no matter how hard it became. The following Saturday, Malik accepted every odd job he could find. He washed cars, mowed lawns, carried groceries, cleaned garages. By sunset, his feet hurt so badly he could barely walk. Yet he smiled, because he'd earned $38. As he headed home, he noticed a luxury black SUV stopped beside the road. Smoke poured from beneath its hood. A middle-aged African-American man wearing an expensive suit stood outside, frustrated. He checked his phone. No signal. Cars sped past without stopping. No one cared. Malik hesitated. He had promised Mama Ruth he'd come straight home. But seeing someone stranded reminded him of her words. Kindness costs nothing. He walked toward the stranger. "Sir, are you okay?" The businessman looked surprised. "I'm fine, son. My car isn't." Malik smiled. "I know someone who fixes cars." The man sighed. "I've called everyone. The nearest shop closed an hour ago." Malik thought for a moment. Then he remembered old Mr. Harris, a retired mechanic living 3 blocks away. "Wait here." Before the businessman could answer, Malik ran. He ran through crowded streets, across puddles, past busy intersections. Nearly 20 minutes later, he returned with 70-year-old Mr. Harris carrying a heavy toolbox. Within 30 minutes, the engine started. The businessman couldn't believe it. "You saved me." Malik simply smiled. "I'm glad you're okay." The businessman reached into his wallet. He pulled out 5 crisp $100 bills. "Please take this." Malik stepped back. "I can't." The man blinked. "You just spent nearly an hour helping me. My grandma says kindness isn't something you sell." For the first time in years, the businessman stood speechless. The businessman slowly put the money away. Then he knelt until he was eye level with Malik. "What is your name, son?" "Malik Carter." "And where do you live?" Malik pointed toward the old apartment buildings in the distance. "There." The businessman looked at the crumbling neighborhood. His expression changed. He quietly handed Malik a simple business card. "If you ever need anything, call me." Malik thanked him politely and slipped the card into his pocket without even reading the name. To him, it was just another stranger he'd helped. He had no idea that the man standing before him was one of the wealthiest entrepreneurs in Georgia. Nor did he know that this small act of kindness had just changed the course of his life forever. As Malik walked home beneath the glowing streetlights, the businessman watched him disappear into the distance. Then he whispered to himself, "I've spent my whole life searching for honest people. I think I finally found one." The business card stayed tucked inside Malik Carter's worn backpack for nearly 2 weeks. He never looked at it, never called, never even thought about it. Life was too busy. Every morning began before sunrise. He swept sidewalks for a neighborhood grocery store. After school, he collected recyclables and helped elderly neighbors carry groceries. At night, he studied beside a flickering lamp while Mama Ruth quietly coughed in the next room. The doctor had warned her that delaying treatment any longer could become dangerous. But medicine was expensive. Rent was due. Electricity bills kept piling up. Every dollar disappeared before it could stay. Still, Mama Ruth smiled every morning. She refused to let Malik see how much pain she was in. But children notice things adults try to hide. Malik noticed every slow step, every painful breath, every forced smile. One evening, while washing dishes, he quietly asked, "Grandma, are you getting worse?" Mama Ruth turned away so he wouldn't see the tears forming in her eyes. "I'm just getting older, sweetheart." Malik wasn't convinced. He promised himself that somehow, no matter what it took, he would find a way to help her. Across the city, inside a 40-story glass office tower overlooking Atlanta, the stranger Malik had helped couldn't stop thinking about the boy. His name was Darius Kingston. To the world, he was a billionaire entrepreneur, owner of one of the country's fastest-growing technology companies. People admired his wealth. They respected his success. But very few knew the loneliness behind his smile. His wife had passed away years earlier. His only son had become distant, caring more about money than family. Every day, Darius met people who wanted something from him. Business deals, investments, favors. Yet one poor boy had refused $500 without hesitation. That memory stayed with him. It reminded him of a time when people valued character more than wealth. Unable to forget, Darius called his assistant. "I need you to find someone." The assistant nodded. "Who?" "A boy named Malik Carter." Within 24 hours, the assistant returned with a file. She placed it gently on Darius's desk. "I found him." Darius opened the folder. Inside were school records, neighborhood information, and details about Malik's life. The more he read, the quieter he became. Orphan. Lives with elderly grandmother. Excellent grades. No disciplinary record. Volunteers whenever possible. Part-time jobs after school. Perfect attendance. Teachers describe him as respectful, hardworking, and unusually compassionate. Darius slowly closed the folder. His eyes filled with emotion. So much hardship. And yet he still chooses kindness. For the first time in years, he felt something he hadn't expected. Hope. The next afternoon, Darius decided to visit Southwood without telling anyone who he was. He left his expensive suit behind. Instead, he wore jeans, a simple jacket, and a baseball cap. Walking through the neighborhood, he noticed broken sidewalks, abandoned buildings, and children playing with worn-out basketballs. People struggled. Yet many still greeted one another with smiles. Near a corner grocery store, he spotted Malik unloading heavy boxes from a delivery truck. Sweat covered the boy's forehead. The store owner handed him a few crumpled bills. "Thanks, kid." Malik smiled. "No problem, Mr. Jenkins." As he turned to leave, he noticed Darius standing nearby. Hey. Malik recognized him instantly. Your car's okay now? Darius laughed. Still running perfectly. I'm glad. Malik started walking away. Darius blinked in surprise. Most people would have stayed, hoping for a reward. Malik expected nothing. Wait, Darius called. Can I buy you an ice cream? Malik hesitated, then smiled. Sure. They sat together on a nearby park bench. Children laughed in the distance. Birds circled above the trees. For a while, neither of them spoke. Finally, Darius asked. Why didn't you take the money I offered? Malik shrugged. My grandma says helping people isn't a business. Darius smiled. What if you really needed it? We do. But that doesn't change what's right. Darius looked away. The answer hit him harder than he expected. So what do you want to be when you grow up? Malik's eyes brightened. I want to build houses. Houses? So kids like me don't have to wonder if they'll have a home tomorrow. Darius stared at him. That wasn't the answer of an ordinary child. It was the dream of someone who had known pain. That evening, Malik hurried home. He used the money he earned to buy bread, eggs, and Mama Ruth's favorite soup. When he opened the apartment door, he found her sitting on the floor. She had collapsed while trying to reach the kitchen. Grandma. Malik rushed to her side. I'm okay, she whispered weakly. No, you're not. Neighbors quickly called an ambulance. As paramedics carried Mama Ruth away, Malik held her trembling hand. I'll be right behind you. She smiled faintly. You've always been so brave. Those words echoed in his mind as the ambulance disappeared down the street. Hours later, Malik sat alone in the hospital waiting room. The bright white lights made everything feel cold. Doctors walked past without looking at him. Families hugged one another. Children slept on chairs. Malik quietly bowed his head. He wasn't asking for money. He wasn't asking for miracles. He simply whispered, Please don't take my grandma away too. A nurse approached him. You've been here all evening. He nodded. She handed him a warm cup of hot chocolate. You look like you could use this. Malik smiled. Thank you. Even in difficult moments, kindness found its way back to him. The next morning, the doctor finally came out. Are you Malik Carter? He stood immediately. Yes, sir. Your grandmother is stable. Malik let out a deep breath. But his heart sank. She needs surgery soon. The cost is far beyond what insurance will cover. Malik lowered his eyes. He already knew they couldn't afford it. Not even close. As he walked out of the hospital, rain began to fall. He reached into his backpack for shelter. Instead of finding an umbrella, his hand touched the business card. The one he had never looked at. He slowly pulled it out. Across the front, in elegant silver letters, it read, Darius Kingston. Kingston Technologies. For a long moment, Malik stared at the card. He remembered the man's kindness. His offer. His words. If you ever need anything, call me. Malik looked toward the cloudy sky. Then back at the card. His fingers trembled. Would calling him be asking for help? Or simply accepting the kindness someone had freely offered? With tears in his eyes, he slipped the card back into his pocket. He wasn't ready to make the call. Not yet. But destiny was already moving. Someone else had just learned that Mama Ruth was in the hospital. And that someone was Darius Kingston. The rain continued long into the night. Malik sat alone outside the hospital, staring at the business card in his hand. He turned it over again and again, as if the answer might suddenly appear on the other side. His grandmother had always taught him to work for everything he received. She believed dignity was worth more than money. Calling Darius Kingston felt different. It wasn't pride holding him back. It was fear. Fear that people only offered kindness until it became inconvenient. Fear that the wealthy businessman had already forgotten the poor boy who had helped him weeks ago. Malik folded the card carefully and slipped it back into his pocket. I'll find another way, he whispered. The next morning, Malik left the hospital before sunrise. He spent the entire day searching for work. He washed windows at a small cafe. He helped a florist unload heavy boxes. He swept parking lots. By evening, his hands were blistered and his back ached. When he counted everything he had earned, it was only $64. He looked at the hospital estimate folded in his backpack. The surgery would cost tens of thousands. His shoulders slumped. For the first time in years, he felt defeated. Across town, Darius Kingston was in the middle of an important board meeting. Executives discussed profits, investments, and expansion plans. No one noticed that Darius wasn't paying attention. His thoughts kept returning to Malik. Suddenly, his assistant quietly entered the room. She leaned close and whispered, "Sir, I have something you should know." Darius excused himself and stepped into the hallway. "What happened?" "We've learned that Malik's grandmother was admitted to the hospital yesterday." Darius's face changed instantly. "Is she all right?" "She's stable, but she needs an expensive surgery." For a moment, the billionaire said nothing. Then he looked through the glass wall at the executives still arguing over numbers. Without another word, he picked up his coat. "Cancel the rest of my meetings." Meanwhile, Malik returned to the hospital carrying a small paper bag. Inside was homemade chicken soup from a neighbor who wanted to help. Mama Ruth smiled weakly when she saw him. "You've been working again." "A little." She noticed the blisters on his hands. Her eyes filled with tears. "My sweet boy, you've carried burdens no child should ever carry." Malik forced a smile. "I'm strong because you raised me." She reached for his hand. "No. You're strong because you choose kindness every single day." Malik looked away before she could see his tears. As Malik stepped into the hallway, he noticed a little boy crying near the vending machines. The child's toy car had rolled beneath a heavy snack machine. His mother was trying to comfort him. Without hesitation, Malik lay flat on the floor. After several attempts, he reached under the machine and pulled out the tiny red car. The little boy's face lit up. "Thank you." Malik laughed. "Looks like your race car wanted an adventure." The child hugged him tightly before running back to his mother. Several people nearby smiled. One elderly woman quietly wiped away a tear. She whispered, "That young man has the biggest heart I've ever seen." None of them realized someone had witnessed the entire moment from the end of the hallway. Darius Kingston. He had arrived only minutes earlier. And what he saw confirmed everything he already believed. Malik wasn't kind because someone was watching. He was kind because that's who he truly was. Darius waited until Malik entered the hospital cafeteria. Then he approached. "Mind if I sit down?" Malik looked up and smiled. "Of course." For a few moments, they spoke about ordinary things. School. Books. Basketball. Then Darius gently asked, "How's your grandmother?" Malik's smile faded. "The doctors say she needs surgery." "I'm sorry." "It's okay." "No," Malik said softly. "It's not." Darius noticed the pain hidden behind the boy's calm voice. He also noticed something else. Despite everything, Malik had never once asked him for help. Not once. That evening, Darius met privately with the hospital director. "I'd like to cover every expense for Mrs. Ruth Carter." The director smiled. "That's incredibly generous. But I have one condition." "What is it?" "Malik must never know the money came from me." The director looked surprised. "Why?" Darius gazed out the window. "Because I don't want gratitude. I want to know that kindness can still exist without expecting anything in return." The paperwork was completed before midnight. Every medical bill. Paid in full. Every treatment. Approved immediately. The next morning, the doctor entered Mama Ruth's room with a smile. "I have wonderful news." Malik stood up immediately. "The surgery has been approved." He frowned. "What do you mean?" "The entire balance has already been paid." Malik stared in disbelief. "There must be a mistake." "There isn't." "But, who paid it?" The doctor simply smiled. "The donor wishes to remain anonymous." Malik looked at his grandmother. Then back at the doctor. Neither of them could speak. Tears rolled down Mama Ruth's cheeks as she quietly whispered, "Sometimes God answers prayers through people." Malik lowered his head. For the first time in many days, he smiled. But deep inside, one question remained. Who had changed their lives without asking for anything in return? Far away, standing beside the hospital window, Darius Kingston watched the joy on Malik's face. He smiled to himself, then quietly walked away before anyone could see him. He believed the story had ended. He had no idea that an unexpected danger was about to bring him and Malik together once again. 3 days later, the hospital felt different. For the first time in weeks, Malik heard his grandmother laugh. It was a soft laugh, weakened by surgery, but to him it sounded more beautiful than any song. The operation had been successful. The doctors expected a full recovery with time and proper care. Every nurse who entered the room noticed the same thing. No matter how exhausted Malik was, he never left his grandmother's side. He helped her eat. He adjusted her blankets. He read Bible verses to her every evening. When she fell asleep, he quietly finished his homework under the dim hospital light. One nurse whispered to another, "That boy has the heart of a grown man." A week later, Mama Ruth was finally discharged. Neighbors gathered outside their apartment building to welcome her home. Someone had baked a pie. Another family brought fresh groceries. Children held handmade welcome home cards. Malik looked around with tears in his eyes. They were poor. Every one of them. Yet they gave whatever they could. Mama Ruth smiled. See, Malik? We may not have much. But we're surrounded by rich hearts. The following Monday, Malik returned to school. His classmates were surprised to see him. Some offered kind words. Others ignored him. But one student didn't. His name was Trevor Brooks. Trevor came from one of the wealthiest families in Atlanta. He loved making fun of anyone less fortunate. As Malik sat down, Trevor tossed a crumpled dollar bill onto his desk. There. You look like you need it. Several students laughed. Malik quietly picked up the dollar. Trevor smirked. I knew you'd keep it. Instead, Malik walked to the classroom donation box for children in need. He dropped the dollar inside. Then calmly returned to his seat. The classroom fell silent. Even Trevor didn't know what to say. Mrs. Evelyn Brooks had witnessed everything. She smiled proudly. Sometimes the greatest lesson wasn't written on a blackboard. Across the city, Darius Kingston couldn't stop thinking about Malik. He had secretly followed the boy's progress from a distance. Every report said the same thing. Kind, honest, hardworking, selfless. His assistant finally asked, Sir, why is this boy so important to you? Darius looked out at the Atlanta skyline. When I was 12, my family lost everything. I remember being hungry. I remember sleeping in shelters. One stranger believed in me. He changed my life. I've spent 40 years trying to become successful. He paused. But maybe success isn't measured by how much money you earn. Maybe it's measured by whose future you change. That evening, Malik took on another small job. A local bakery needed help delivering leftover bread to nearby shelters. He happily volunteered. As he carried boxes through downtown streets, he noticed people rushing away from a nearby intersection. A loud crash echoed through the air. Tires screeched. Glass shattered. People screamed. Malik dropped the bread and ran toward the sound. A black luxury sedan had collided with a delivery truck. Smoke poured from the engine. The driver's door was crushed. Inside, a man struggled to move. Without thinking, Malik rushed forward. People nearby shouted, Stay back. It might explode. But Malik ignored them. He grabbed a loose metal rod lying on the road. Using every bit of strength he had, he forced the damaged door open just enough. The trapped driver reached toward him. Malik pulled with everything he had. Seconds later, they both fell onto the pavement. Just as they rolled away, the front of the car burst into flames. The crowd gasped. Someone yelled, He saved him. Firefighters arrived within minutes. Paramedics surrounded the injured driver. As they lifted him onto a stretcher, Malik finally got a clear look at his face. His heart skipped. Darius. It was the same man he had helped weeks earlier. Darius opened his eyes for a brief moment. Through the pain, he saw Malik standing beside him. A weak smile appeared on his face. You saved me. Again. Before Malik could answer, the ambulance doors closed. Sirens echoed into the night. The news spread quickly. Television stations covered the dramatic rescue. Witnesses described the fearless young boy who ran into danger while everyone else stepped back, but no reporter knew his name. Malik quietly returned to the shelter. He picked up the scattered boxes of bread, then continued delivering food as if nothing extraordinary had happened. To him, the people waiting for dinner were just as important. The next morning, Darius woke up in the hospital with only minor injuries. His first question wasn't about his company. It wasn't about his car. It wasn't even about the accident. He looked at his assistant and asked, Where's Malik? The assistant smiled. We're trying to find him. Darius shook his head. No. This time, I'm going to find him myself. At that very moment, neither of them knew that someone else had been watching everything. Trevor Brooks' father, Victor Brooks, a ruthless real estate developer, had recognized Darius's face on the news. And when he discovered that a poor orphan boy had become close to one of the richest men in Georgia, he saw an opportunity. Not to help, but to use Malik for his own gain. The story of the mysterious boy who rescued a wealthy businessman spread across Atlanta overnight. News channels replayed the footage again and again. Witnesses called him a hero. Social media filled with thousands of comments. Everyone wanted to know one thing. Who was the brave young boy? But Malik never watched the news. He was too busy helping Mama Ruth settle back into their tiny apartment. He fixed her favorite chair with scraps of wood he found behind a hardware store. He cooked breakfast before school. He reminded her to take her medicine every morning. To him, those moments mattered far more than becoming famous. Meanwhile, Darius Kingston refused to give interviews. Reporters waited outside the hospital. Television crews asked endless questions. Instead of talking about the accident, Darius made only one statement. "The person who saved my life isn't just brave, he represents everything good that's still left in this world." The reporters immediately began searching for the unknown hero. Within hours, someone identified the bakery where Malik volunteered. Then another witness recognized him from the hospital. By evening, his name had become public: Malik Carter, the orphan boy from Southwood. The next morning, Malik walked toward school carrying his worn backpack. Something felt different. Cars slowed as they passed. People smiled. Some waved. When he reached the school gate, dozens of students were waiting. For a moment, he thought he had done something wrong. Instead, the students began clapping. Teachers joined them. Parents standing nearby applauded. Mrs. Evelyn Brooks walked forward with tears in her eyes. "We're proud of you, Malik. You reminded all of us what courage looks like." Malik blushed with embarrassment. "I only helped someone who needed it." His answer made the applause even louder. Watching from across the street was Victor Brooks, a wealthy real estate developer with a polished smile and a cold heart. He adjusted his sunglasses and studied Malik carefully. "So, that's the boy." His assistant nodded. "Yes, sir." Victor smiled. "If Darius Kingston cares about him, then that boy could become very useful." Unlike Darius, Victor never helped anyone without expecting something in return. He wasn't interested in Malik, he was interested in Darius's fortune. That afternoon, Darius finally visited Southwood again. This time, he didn't come alone. He brought his assistant, but instructed her to remain in the car. He wanted this meeting to be personal. Malik was sweeping the sidewalk outside his apartment building when he noticed the familiar figure walking toward him. His face lit up. "Mr. Darius." Darius smiled warmly. "I've been looking for you." Malik lowered his head. "I'm glad you're okay." Darius looked at the broom in Malik's hands. "You rescued me." Again. Malik shrugged. "You would have done the same for me." Those simple words touched Darius more deeply than Malik could ever know. Darius asked if they could take a walk. They wandered through a nearby park where children laughed on playgrounds. After a few minutes, Darius stopped beside a large oak tree. "Malik, I know someone secretly paid for your grandmother's surgery." Malik nodded. "I've prayed every day for that person. I wish I could thank them." Darius took a slow breath. "It was me." Silence filled the air. Malik stared at him. His eyes widened. "You?" Darius nodded gently. "I couldn't stand by and watch you lose the only family you have." For a long moment, Malik couldn't speak. Then tears rolled down his cheeks. Instead of saying thank you, he wrapped his arms around Darius in a tight hug. "I don't have the words." Darius hugged him back. "You don't need them." For the first time in many years, the billionaire felt like family again. Later that evening, Darius visited Mama Ruth. She welcomed him into the tiny apartment with a grateful smile. "I've wanted to meet the angel who saved my life." Darius laughed softly. "I think your grandson has saved mine more than once." The three of them shared a simple homemade dinner. There was no expensive furniture, no crystal glasses, no luxury. Just fried chicken, cornbread, vegetables, and laughter. As Darius looked around the small apartment, he realized something. This tiny home contained more love than many mansions he had visited. Before leaving, he turned to Mama Ruth. "With your permission, I'd like to mentor Malik. I want to help him achieve every dream he has." Mama Ruth smiled through happy tears. "I prayed for someone to believe in him. I never imagined God would send someone like you." As Darius drove away that night, Victor Brooks watched from a distance. His expression darkened. "So, the old man really does care about the boy." He pulled out his phone. "It's time. Begin phase 1. His assistant looked confused. "What exactly is phase 1? Victor smiled coldly. "We're going to make Darius believe that Malik betrayed him." Far away, Malik sat beside his bedroom window, looking up at the stars. He had no idea that the happiest day of his life would soon be followed by the greatest test of his character. Someone was preparing a lie powerful enough to destroy everything he had gained. The next morning began like any other. Malik woke before sunrise, prepared breakfast for Mama Ruth, packed his school books, and swept the hallway outside their apartment. He had no idea that, across the city, Victor Brooks had already set his plan into motion. A man working for Victor secretly entered Darius Kingston's headquarters late the previous evening. Using stolen credentials, he copied confidential business files onto a flash drive. The next morning, an anonymous message was sent to several members of Darius's executive team. It claimed that the files had been stolen by someone connected to Malik Carter. Victor smiled as he read the message. Now let's see how much Darius trusts his little hero. Within hours, rumors spread through the company. Some executives demanded an investigation. Others questioned why Darius had become so close to a poor orphan. One senior board member spoke sharply. Sir, with all due respect, emotions are clouding your judgment. Darius calmly looked around the room. Do you have proof? The executive hesitated. No. Then this meeting is over. As everyone filed out, Darius quietly picked up the anonymous envelope. He didn't believe Malik was guilty. Not for a second. But he knew someone was trying to destroy the boy's reputation. That afternoon, 2 police detectives visited Malik's apartment. Neighbors watched nervously from their windows. Mama Ruth opened the door with trembling hands. Can we help you, officers? We're looking for Malik Carter. Malik stepped forward. I'm Malik. One detective spoke kindly. We only have a few questions. The frightened neighbors immediately assumed the worst. Whispers spread through the building. I knew something was wrong. Poor kid. Malik remained calm. I'll answer whatever you need. The detectives asked about Darius, the accident, and whether anyone had ever asked him to enter Kingston Technologies. He answered every question honestly. Within 20 minutes, the detectives thanked him. You've been very cooperative. As they walked away, one detective quietly said to his partner, that boy is hiding nothing. The investigation quickly uncovered the truth. Security footage showed Victor Brooks's employee entering the building. Financial records connected the employee directly to Victor's company. The anonymous messages had all been sent from devices registered to his business. There was no doubt. The entire accusation against Malik had been a lie. Police arrested Victor Brooks before sunset. As cameras flashed outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. Why did you frame a child? Victor lowered his head. He had no answer. The following weekend, Darius invited Malik and Mama Ruth to a charity gala. It was held inside one of Atlanta's most beautiful museums. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. Elegant music filled the room. Many of the city's most influential people attended. Malik felt nervous in his simple navy blue suit. Mama Ruth gently squeezed his hand. Never forget who you are. Darius stepped onto the stage. The room fell silent. I've spent my life building companies. I thought success was measured by wealth. He looked toward Malik. Then I met a young man who owned almost nothing, yet gave away everything he could. Many guests wiped away tears. Darius continued. This boy saved my life, not once, but twice. He taught me that true greatness isn't found in bank accounts. It's found in character. The audience rose to their feet. A standing ovation echoed through the grand hall. Then Darius smiled. I have one final announcement. He invited Malik onto the stage. The young boy walked forward, confused. Darius placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Years ago, someone believed in me when I had nothing. Today, it's my turn. He handed Malik a small envelope. Inside was a scholarship covering every year of school, from middle school to college. The audience erupted into applause. Malik stood frozen. I don't know what to say. Darius smiled. Then say you'll keep being yourself. With tears streaming down his face, Malik nodded. I promise. Months passed. Mama Ruth regained her strength. Malik's grades became the highest in his school. Inspired by his story, volunteers across Atlanta launched a community project to renovate abandoned homes for struggling families. The project was named the Carter Hope Initiative. Hundreds of volunteers joined. Builders donated materials. Students gave their weekends. Families who once had nowhere to live finally received safe homes. The dream Malik had shared on a park bench was beginning to come true. One house, one family, one act of kindness at a time. Several years later, a young man in a graduation gown stood at the podium of a packed university auditorium. It was Malik. His voice was calm but filled with emotion. When people looked at me, they saw an orphan. My grandmother saw a future. When people saw poverty, Mr. Darius Kingston saw potential. But the greatest lesson I ever learned was this. Kindness is never wasted. You may never know whose life you're changing, but every act of love plants a seed that one day grows into hope. The audience stood in thunderous applause. In the front row, Mama Ruth smiled proudly. Beside her sat Darius Kingston. Neither of them could hold back their tears. As the applause echoed through the hall, Darius leaned toward Mama Ruth and whispered. The day your grandson saved a stranger. He changed my life forever. Mama Ruth smiled. No. He simply became the man he was always meant to be. The three embraced as cameras flashed around them. The moment wasn't about wealth. It wasn't about fame. It was about compassion. A poor orphan boy had proven that the greatest riches in life are found not in what we keep, but in what we give.